The devil came back, he's dancing in your past. So you're acting like you need me now. Hey, so tell me if I'm mad. There's something in your laugh that makes me feel the way you smile. Hey, it's hard to believe sometimes. We can pretend we're normal people, and I can repeat those times. We can pretend we're boring people, and it's hard to believe sometimes. We can pretend we're normal people, and I can repeat those times. And I can repeat those times, yeah. New planet, we planning everything we wanted. Your favorites, cool feelings. I'm bound to you. Longer that we hide, everything starts it behind it. Oh, we're safe on the inside. Yeah, I know we're fine. The devil came back, he's dancing in your past. So you're acting like you need me now. Hey, so tell me if I'm mad. There's something in your laugh that makes me feel the way you smile. Hey, it's hard to believe sometimes. We can pretend we're normal people, and I can repeat those times. We can pretend we're boring people, and it's hard to believe sometimes. We can pretend we're normal people, and I can repeat those times. And I can repeat those times, yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Notepad Anon and I write games for fun. So what are we working on today? Well, today we're going to be working on Pojedynek Kobiet, Sukience, and we are going to be hopefully working on more stuff with it. Just stuff. A lot of stuff, really. I can see you fly. So, let's see, is everything set up correctly? Yeah, everything looks decent. So last time, we managed to kind of clean up a lot of these things just to make a lot of the arts. We formalized the formalities and various other small things simply to make everything work nicely. Now the big thing though we need to do, where is it? Fixing up combat. This is kind of the big thing right here. We kind of need to fix up combat and overhaul the relationship and ensemble mechanics. Generally speaking, I want to fix up combat first because that's kind of the more important part, simply because of what it actually is. Once this is done, we can everything else kind of falls into place relatively easily. So, let's get into business. You can't tell I'm a little bit tired right now. I don't know why. Pojedynek Kobiet, Sukience. I'm not Polish. Let's see, so words are drawn, the fight begins. Most important aspect of duels is the Kobietas. Let's see, is Kobiet, that'd be Kobieta is a plural of Kobiet, so it would be Kobiets, not Kobietas. Kobiet's adrenaline. Actually, I'm gonna to put is the most important aspect to duels is the Kobiets which gradually increases over the course of the duel to allow more intense actions and desperate defenses. Every Kobiet has a base of 10 adrenaline. Situations can also reduce or increase the amount of adrenaline in a duel. A positive relationship reduces the amount of adrenaline, while a negative relationship increases the amount. So we need to do, how do I want to word this? I'm gonna put a note for myself is poisoning. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put we are going to put a table right here. We're going to call side note exterior conditions and adrenaline, and this is going to be things like poison, weather, X, things like points, poison, weather, injury, if I can fucking spell injury, etc. This is kind of like it is going to be effectively a side note, effectively stating this is what it is. But I need to put that there so I don't forget about it when we get to it later. Okay, so okay, we need to fix this line right here. Actually, a positive relationship with the opponent. Will reduce the total adrenaline. Actually, I don't want to word this. Actually, no, a positive relationship with the opponent will reduce the starting. It has a starting adrenaline of 10. Situations will reduce the starting adrenaline. Let's see. A positive relationship with the opponent will reduce the starting adrenaline by the relationship's value, while a negative relationship with the opponent will increase the starting adrenaline by the value. So effectively, what this is stating is that if you like the person, you probably don't want to duel them. Hello, Draco. If you are not really good friends with them, you probably want to duel them. And this could be some a little bit more, how do I want to word this? Exciting reveals of like, hey, this person doesn't actually hate you. They're actually pretty okay with you. So it's like, well, they have less adrenaline and you just went full ham on them. Or, hey, you don't act like they actually hate you. Like you're like, oh, this is going to be a friendly duel, and then they go gamer mode on you and they have an advantage right away. Oh, you're in trouble. This is as they say, a problem. Let's see. Having effects such as being poisoned will also reduce the starting adrenaline. A Kobiet, not Kobieta. That's gonna have to be one thing. Actually, you know what? I want to do that now. Kobieta. Oh, sweet Jesus. There are 108 instances. There are 108 instances of the word Kobieta where technically that's like saying cows, or like that's the plural of Kobieta. Fuck. Alright, we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to ignore our problems. We can't see it, it isn't real. Effects being poisoned, injured, or acting at a disadvantage also reduce that. Every round Both Kobiet distribute their adrenaline into a bout of the combat, determining how hard, when, and where each of the strikes will land. When both have distributed their adrenaline, does the fight truly begin in honest? You can cut that. Truly begin. Does the fight truly? When both have distributed their adrenaline, does the damn you, English. Have distributed their adrenaline. Both the fight will truly begin. Bam. Okay. Man, I am operating at like 30% right now. Don't question anything. Like I don't know why I'm really tired all of a sudden. And it's like the past like hour. Rune Quest? Which edition? Is like Rune Quest is just Chaosium, so it's going to be the BRP system. And have I played Call of Cthulhu? A long ass time ago, and it was good. I liked it. I know Rune Quest can be a little bit much to take in, simply because there's a lot of Rune Quest. And if you like D100 fantasy stuff, then yeah, you're gonna like Rune Quest. What do you want to know about it? Yeah, they got different stats, but how do I want to word this? Yeah, it's the same ideas. Everything is the exact same, relatively speaking, but it's just different wording. That's pretty much all it is. There's no like wild differences in that regard, outside of the differences between the books. But see, my problem is I like Hero Quest more. With absolute newbies, there are worse choices. The big thing with Rune Quest is it's just a lot to take in initially. You have to kind of ease them in a little bit with it. Again, I would say like either have like a basic character setup so they can like see it, because what happens a lot of the time with like a lot of skill heavy games and Rune Quest and BRP is that people see the entire character sheet and immediately get frightened. They're like, oh god, that's a lot of numbers. But when you actually like show them what a character looks like, they're like, oh, this is really simple. You just kind of got to do that. People sometimes get intimidated by that. But if you're already with like, if they're feeling confident, they should be fine. Like, out of every system to teach someone it, BRP is probably one of the better ones. You just kind of gotta, you just have to kind of remind them that it is not the dragon game. And if they think that it is the dragon game, they're not going to have fun. Like, because Rune Quest doesn't hold your hand in that regard. Like, you can get fucked up pretty bad. Let's see, rounds composed of 3 separate phases: standoff, bout, and recovery. The standoff has both parties begin to circle one another in phase and determine their stance and style. Okay. Okay, so the standoff has both parties Kobieta begin to circle one another and determine their stance and style for the round, I guess. Yeah, for the round. They also gain +1 AD for. They also increase their AD by +1 after the first round. So pretty much every standoff you can kind of select if you want to switch or not. you also have the opportunity of saying, you're pretty much going to get one base. And also, I should say, also increase their base AD. So we can do the starting 80 by +1 after the first round. So if you're just going to start with, let's say you start with 10 base default. The second round you're going to have 11. The third round you're going to have 12. The fourth round you're going to have 13. Yeah, you'll be fine then. So if you go into, it's one of those things, like if you go into a certain kinds of games with like pre-expectations, sometimes people get a little bit weirded out by it. I know that was my friend in Dolphin, actually. He's from China, actually, and he plays a lot of Call of Cthulhu, because Call of Cthulhu is very big in China. And if you try to pitch another game to them, people are going to think that it's like Call of Cthulhu. And there are some like expectations of like how the game plays. It's like, no, this is very different. And I think that's what happens a lot here, is that people think that it is. People sometimes go into a game based off like, well, this is what they said tabletop games were, and being like, well, not quite. This is not Dungeons and Dragons. This is very different. I know I've been having to deal with that with one of my players, being like, oh yeah, we're playing D&D, and being like, bitch, we are playing a game about mechs using the goddamn budget Megaversal system. We are not playing the dragon game. Even though hell, it's barely about dragons these days, but that's a completely different story. Let's see. Standoff has both parties circle one another and determine their stance and style. After the first round, which I'm going to put, actually what I can do is I can put a footnote right here. The second round will have a base of 11 AD. The third, actually every round increases the base adrenaline. And increase the base adrenaline by 1. Can be committed. With the idea here is that there's gonna hit a point where you both kind of are mutually assured destruction, where you're rolling so many dice at one another that it's really not useful to like. It's going to come a point where like you're both so hyped up and both so kind of reading one another that even if you go full ham, like nobody wants to, and it's so easy to defend. Like full defense versus full defense, it's like you guys aren't even fighting anymore. It's like, yeah, this is a draw. Both of you are kind of encouraged to like just go ham on one another. But has both of the Kobieta ready themselves for the battle. Each part of the bout is broken down into individual clashes, allowing the Kobieta, not Kobietas. Kobietas is like saying like a plural of a plural. Hey, I will say, I do have my list set up for the next round of games. And the next round of games does maybe perhaps have that on there. There's a few odd ones for the next time around. However, I will say that there may be a delay. I'm not gonna lie, there may be a delay in starting the next round of games, simply because I'm moving, and it's not bad. Like, it's just a lot of like, well, gotta move all this shit somehow, and so it's like, maybe I should take like a day or two off kind of thing. So yeah, all clashes declared at this point are final. So distribute the offensive different strikes and prepare for combat tricks. All clashes declared at this point are final. Actions can disrupt the Kobieta's chain of clash. Actions can disrupt the Kobieta's chain of clashes. Kobiet's chain of clashes, allowing them to chunk losing a part of their expended AD. Actually, what we can do is we do this. We do this. Slap an image right there just to kind of clarify some points. Finally, recover phase. Both parties disengage for a time and restore their adrenaline to full. A duel can be called at this time if one party is one of the Kobieta are unable. The Kobieta is unable to fight. Duel can be called at this point if one of the if one of the Kobieta is unable to continue the fight, or the victory condition has been achieved. If the duel is not called, then it loops back to the standoff phase. Loops back to the standoff phase. So pretty much, recovery is determined victor. I think that's the best way of saying it. Plural's plural. Yeah, English is weird. It does not help that I'm mixing English with Polish, which is has very different grammar rules. So kind of mixing the two together, you kind of have to obey one set of rules, but the other, it's not fun. Because the way that you can interpret this is a duel will be called at this time if one of the women is unable to continue the fight. However, it's a standoff between both women. Let's see. Both Kobieta allowing each part of the bout is broken down individually, allowing the Kobiet. So each part of the bout is broken down into individual clashes, allowing the woman to distribute their offensive AD individual strikes and prepare for any combat tricks. Okay. Stance and style. Stance and style refer to how the Kobieta. Stance and style are how the Kobiet is choosing to fight their opponent. Stance dictates how their adrenaline must be spent, as well as bonus adrenaline from attributes, and their style reflects what kind of attacks and defenses they are able to perform. Okay. Must be, let's see, dictate how much of the adrenaline must be spent, and their style reflects the attacks they're able to perform. First standoff, both challengers, both women determine their stance and style. After the first round, changing, why is that capitalized? Changing the stance or style requires 180 to change, meaning both the stance and style require 2 AD. Actually, no, we're gonna drop this rule. We're gonna drop this rule because you can change it during the standoff, with the idea being that you can say during the standoff phase, okay, I'm at long style and I want to go defensive. That is pretty much, I'm holding you at bay, and anytime you try to attack me, I'm trying to deflect your blows. It's just kind of like the, you can't close in on me, I don't want you to get close to me, and I'm going to punish you anytime you try. On the flip side, well, you can also go like, oh, I want to go aggressive short style, which is like, I'm going to like go as close to you as possible and hit you as hard as possible. But some options aren't good for that. Some options are good for that. So let's see. Stance offensive, you add your bravado dice. Aggressive posture, allowing the woman to dedicate all their adrenaline to her strikes and combat tricks. However, they are unable to dedicate anything to defense. Let's see. They're unable to duplicate their strikes. So a defensive posture. Let's actually do a quick check. Defense. Kobiet's measures line our blade, focusing on moving the sword to match and parry their opponent's strikes when necessary. The most common defense is passive defense, which all of the adrenaline dedicated to defense that forms a pool to draw from for each clash. What was I thinking when I wrote this? You can see this. Notepad, what are you thinking? Notepad from a little over a year ago. What the fuck are you smoking, mate? Kobiet distribute their offensive AD into different strikes prepared for combat tricks. All clashes declared at this point are final. So let's keep a note here. What we need to do is styles. Keeping the blade close to the body. Short style focuses on blocking and turning aside strikes, taking quick attacks to deal with the opponent. Short style allows the use of passive block. Only 5 adrenaline can be spent per strike. Okay. Kind of just spreading this around a little bit. You're supposed to be on your own page, but that means you kind of get broken up a little bit. What are you thinking, Notepad? You know what? We're gonna pull a gamer move right here. Where is it? Let's see. What was Notepad thinking back then? We scroll all the way up here. Effectively, drawn swords and fiery hearts, duels. We have adrenaline. Adrenaline is exactly as it sounds. I kind of discussed that earlier, but everyone gets a set amount of points, which act as effectively their dice that they are allowed to use at various situations. And from there, they can decide what they actually want to do. In this case, fight one another. So, of course, the duel, every character has a base of 10 adrenaline. Situation. Adrenaline. Adrenaline. Well, having a negative relationship increases. Pretty much you're more heated up when you're fighting someone you don't like. When you But effectively, you lose adrenaline if you have a disadvantage. You gain adrenaline if you do have an advantage. Standoff bout and recover. The standoff I actually got from Legend of the Five Rings, and I thought that was a really solid idea. This is what I actually want to select and how I want to do it. And everyone gains. Things are getting more serious. The fight after about being dedicated, ability, which individual, pretty much the people about feeling like this is a really awkward way of saying this, and they're just like, yeah, there's no good way of saying it. Actually, all clashes are declared at this point. Clashes can actions taken can disrupt a character's chain of clashes, losing them a chunk of their expended AD. So pretty much for my offense, see if I can't disable them. While fuck with that. In Bikely, they would cover taken. This is I've been referring to stance and style all throughout of your basic stance. Thing this game is based on, and this is actually the second set of tits in this game. Actually, technically, it's they would care. Accurate. So our final little bit here is the style. On the right is using short style, more defensive style. However, close. So that's kind of the basics here, and it's not the most been working on. That's kind of what I do. It's kind of the entire purpose of this thing. And unfortunately for me, I'm also an idiot and decided. Yeah, I kept going back and forth because half of me wants to do this alphabetical. The other half of me wants to make. Okay, so you're a fucking idiot. That's what's going on here. And people wonder what I do. Like, why do you record all these things, and why do you show people that? The answer is, like, so I could do that. So it's like, okay. So let's see. Equal to their art. That's a bit single strike against them equal to their art. So let's see. When the stance and style have been determined, both challengers must determine what they plan to actually do. Stripping their adrenaline, various clashes will take place. Both sides have their clash act at the same time, meaning if both Kobieta act at the same time, then there is a chance both will kill one another. All clashes have ended, the bout phase is considered done. So when both challengers have built their pools and decide on actions, both will commence the bout. The first clash on the of both of the challengers act at the same time. Kobieta, the first clash of both of what? When both challengers built their pools and decided on their actions, both commence the bout. The first clash of both of the women acts at the same time. The first clash of both Kobieta occur simultaneously. So, Kobieta attempts to injure main target, rolling their adrenaline and bonuses together, attempting to score successes to injure their opponent. When it's passive defense, assign a number of their passive defense to block the blow. Also attacking, scoring unequal successes, and scoring equal successes. Okay. I need to do this right here. Kobieta's defensive measures entirely align on their bait, focusing on moving their sword to match and parry their opponent's strikes when necessary. The most common defense is the passive defense, which is all of the adrenaline dedicated to defense that forms a pool to draw from for each clash. Passive defense must be breached to deal damage to the woman, but regardless of its value in a clash, if it has been used, a Kobiet cannot use it for any further clash. What was I trying to go for here? Okay, so let's think. Let's think, okay? Let's think it. Let's put on our thinking caps, everybody. I won an award for this game. That's the worst part. See, that's how I know nobody actually fucking reads my games, is when someone gives me an award for it. It's great. Finally, Krew for this engagement. Okay. Okay, let's say we have five. Let's just say we have five. All right, we got five d6s here. This is what we're actually. Do I have any other d6s in my little case here? I do have extra d6s. Except it's a really hard to read awkward dice. Awesome. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do I have another? I do have extra d6s. There we go. You know, I'll put in few extra d6s because you can never have enough d6s, kids. Remember that. Oop. Whoop. Whoop. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I got my 10 dice over here. That's all I have to work with. So let's break this down. So short style, let's say for example, we're using short style. Actually, well, let's say we're going aggressive short style. That's our most important thing. Actually, I should say offensive. Offensive short style. Aggressive posture. So we cannot dedicate anything to defense, but we are on short style. Okay, let's scroll down to defense. But we can assign things to passive defense. What is the wording? What is the wording here? Okay, what are you doing? Okay, so let's say for example, we can spend all our things on everything. So I want to dedicate 3 to one attack. We want to do, let's say we want to dedicate 3 to an offense there. We'll dedicate 2 to an offense, 2 here, and let's say we'll dedicate 2 and 1. We have 2 passive defense, 1 passive defense. So it's pretty much like you have to try to block me and actually, or we just hold back all our passive defense, being kind of like it's just behind us now. Passive defense assigns a number of passive defense to block the blow. Okay. No. Okay, I know what I'm doing here. So let's see. The stance and style are how the Kobiet is choosing to fight their opponents. Stancing must be spent, as well as the adrenaline from they aren't able to dedicate anything to defensive. I should say defensive maneuvers, really defensive actions. But you can do for passive defense. Unable to dedicate any adrenaline to strikes or combat tricks. Split their adrenaline down the middle. It's any odd being their choice. And between offense and defense. So then we have our style, weapon range by 1, but that cannot use passive block. So it's kind of along the idea of like if you're doing with long style. Okay, so since I've been determined, both challengers must determine what they plan to actually do, distributing their adrenaline to various clashes that will take place. Both sides have their clash act at the same time, meaning that if both women act at the same time, then there's a chance both will kill one another. So if I distribute my dice in 3-2-2 with 3 in the back, I'm doing short aggressive, let's just say short style, aggressive style. I haven't violated any rules. Each clash has 2 dice. Each class has 2 dice, and I have 3 in my passive defense. So what we need to do is we need to explain passive defense earlier. Okay, so Kobiet is so actually let's just see if the opponent has passive defense, and the opponent must assign a number of passive defense to block the blow. If the Kobiet scores more successes than the passive defense of their target, they deal damage equal to their weapon plus successes. So pretty much how this works is that it'd be injure or maim their target, rolling their adrenaline and bonuses together, attempting to score successes to injure their opponent. Boy death, each kobieta, each woman is assigned to a wound associated with each body part, ranging from light flesh wounds, arterial. Every time a kobieta receives a wound to a body part, they reduce the total adrenaline by the amount. Reduce their total adrenaline. And a 3-main wound type, light, serious, mortal. The 4th wound called overkill. Kobieta continue to fight. Fighting at serious wounds and worst limb is considered crippled. Each crippled limb is different effects. The slashing damage. What does that actually mean? So it's just like if I hit, I'm going to do that much damage. I guess that would be the case. Just by virtue of if I hit you, I will do 2 damage. And because, like, for example, if I hit you in the head and do 2 damage, you have taken away both of your light wounds. Now you just have 1 mortal wound left. Okay. Rolling their adrenaline, but... Okay, so actually we need to... What we'll do is we will change this. The women attempt to injure... The woman... opponent rolling their adrenaline and bonuses together. If they score attempt, I should say, comma, attempting to score successes to deal to injure their opponent. So, if the opponent has passive defense, we're going to underline that. Hello, Manly. I'm trying to put all of this together, which is a little bit easier said than done. Where's my beer? I need more thinking liquor. Their opponent assigns a number of passive defense to block the blow. It scores more successes than passive defense of their target. They will deal damage equal to their weapon plus over successes. Successes over passive defense, in which we add a quick footnote. If there is 3 passive defense, rolling 4 successes would deal weapon damage plus 1, as you scored 1 success over their passive defense. So if the opponent is also attacking, scoring unequal successes. That's a weird way of putting it. Both challengers roll, and the highest amount of successes has their attack go through. However, the opposing party may opt to take the entire attack with no defense, with no defense, but dealing damage to the target. Okay, we need to reword this entirely because I'm a thinking juice. Damn straight, this is my thinking juice. See, okay, both challengers, actually both Kobieta, both women roll, and the highest amount, and I should say largest amount of successes, will have their attack go through. The opponent may choose to take the attack with no defense. But dealing damage to the target, but dealing their own damage on target. Or they may expend successes, to reduce the amount of damage sustained by the target, by the attack. Okay. So rolls highest amount of success will have their attack go through. The opponent may choose to take. So I'm attacking you, you're attacking me. So you have your 3 dice. Let's say we both have 3 dice. We're gonna dice rolling ASMR. I rolled fucking terrible, and you rolled you rolled 2 successes. I rolled 0 successes. Did I seriously roll 0 fucking successes? Yeah, no, you rolled a single success. I rolled no successes. So what would account for here is that you have hit me before I could really do anything to block. I can't mitigate the damage. It's one of those things where we have both clearly seen one another, and I've leapt at you and you've leapt at me, and my blade has entered you, and I've missed, and your blade has entered me. And you're going to do whatever the damage of your weapon is, plus 1. I can't block any of it. But for example, let's say I rolled 2 successes. And let's say I rolled 1 success and you rolled 2 successes, for example. Your attack is going to go through. I have 2 options. I can either say fine, and I can say fine. I can take the entire blow, or I can spend that success and try to reduce the damage a little bit. That's kind of the idea. Neither way is really good, because you're both taking the damage full on, and taking the damage full on is bad. You don't want to take the damage. So, we want to do opponent's passive defense. Both challengers roll, highest amount of successes. However, the opposing party... Who pinged me? Who pinged me? Gam designers ping me. The literal troglodytes of humanity. Gam designers. Large amount of successes. Number of successes will have their attack go through. The opponent may choose to take. Let's see. The opponent may choose to take the attack with no defense. Pretty much it's the idea, like, you're just taking full damage, but you can also deal damage to their own, or you may expend successes to reduce the amount of damage sustained by the attack. It's kind of like one of those things like, well, you scored 2 successes, I scored 3 successes. I'm gonna do damage to you, but do you want to take 2 extra damage, or do you want to try to block it, or do you want to just deal full damage to me? Actually, I should say their weapons damage with no successes. Actually, no. damaging their target. Because like a single like 2-3 damage could be lethal. That's kind of the idea. Like if you're feeling confident, you're going for a downward strike and like you want to hit their fucking head, then hit their, like, yeah, I'm pretty confident like I can take a blow to my chest if I can hit you in the head with a sword. But if it's a back and forth. You don't really know what everybody's doing, and the thing is, if they trick you, like, well, sorry, your successes literally mean nothing. And now I have the advantage, and now I'm stabbing you. Deal full damage to one another with their strikes. This is canon, probably will kill both of them. Yeah, you don't even get the option to say like, oh, I want to counter. No, if you score equal successes, you're going to hit one another effectively. So, tricks. The Kobiet augments their strike, trying to do something a bit extra, changing up their strategy and how they plan to do things. Combat tricks have to be applied before the bout begins, before the clash begins, I should say. Reveal to the opponent until it goes off. Each trick costs AD to use in some capacity. Let's see. Defensive measures are often entirely reliant on their blade, focusing on that. Yeah, we need to now reword this. Is often reliant on their blade. Their blade, focusing and moving their sword to match and parry their opponent's strikes when necessary. Actually, we'll add a second paragraph here. Actually, we'll do short style users may employ passive defense, which allows them to hold back a number of dice to be used. Let's see. Short style users may employ passive defense, which allows them to hold back a number of dice from the clash. Hold back a number of dice from the clash. From any clash. Let's see. Short style users may employ passive defense, which allows them to hold back a number of dice from any clash. These dice form a pool that can be drawn from. Which allows them to hold back a number of dice equal to dice from any clash. These dice form a pool that can be drawn from to increase the difficulty to strike. Increase the difficulty to strike them. Strike them. Passive defense. Must be overcome to deal damage to the Kobiet. If used, it can no longer be employed in any other clash. So it's kind of like one of those ideas. If we're using the same example, again, I have my 3 dice versus your 3 dice, but I have 3 dice kind of as passive. I could assign 2 passive defense, which is the kind of which is me saying like I'm being a little bit more defensive, but I'm still attacking you. So you're gonna roll your dice, I'm gonna roll my dice. We're gonna together roll, and you roll, and you score 2 successes. I score 0 successes. However, since I've dedicated 2 of that passive defense, your attack doesn't actually go through. You didn't beat that. So it's kind of like one of those things we kind of launch at each other, but I kind of pass your blade away and it goes forward. But I no longer have those dice. You no longer have those, and now I'm out 5 dice. You only are down 3. So the idea being more of a conservation of resources. Actually, passive defense. Actually, the opponent must have successes. Successes equal to or greater than the passive defense to damage the woman. If used, no longer be employed in any other clash. All right. So it's kind of along that idea that passive defense is kind of like your way of saying, like, I want to play a little bit defensively. Which the idea, here's the catch though. If a player is like, I'm going to be special. I'm going to dedicate all my dice to passive defense. Here's the problem. Here's the big issue. They damn well know you're going to do that, and they're going to change things up. They have the option of starting performing tricks. Things like tricks and things like that. All you are doing when you are dedicating your dice are saying, these dice are being dedicated to offense. You know, these dice are being dedicated to this pool. Or these dice are being dedicated to this combat pool. These are being dedicated here. These are being put in reserve. So, by the virtue of having a handful of dice solely dedicated to, I want to block, that's you pretty much opening yourself up for feint, otherwise known as you're going to die because you're going to burn all your dice and then stab you at the end. Which is a very tactical maneuver, which we like to call the Austrian Mamba. People still play fucking Splatoon, which I will never understand. Defensive maneuvers can be used by dedicating them to certain clashes. Grappling. There's animals who can die to get down dirty at points. One. Steel fields are sometimes the only satisfying smack of fists and slams cold ground can finish a duel properly. The grapple must take place within one step and has Kobiet to roll all of their clashes adrenaline together, attempting to score more successes than their opponent. Okay, so a grapple must take place within one step and has the Kobiet roll all of their remaining clashes, all of their remaining adrenaline. And score more successes than their opponent. Put that right there. We put conversational right there. We put one right there, which is let's see, if a grapple takes place on Clash 2, on Clash 2 of 4, the Kobieta will take their, well, let's see, the Kobieta will take the dice from Clash 2, 3, and 4 together and roll them at once. So honestly, if you want to do that, just literally, if someone's going full on defense, literally just get up as close as possible and tackle them. What are they going to do? Try to block you? Yeah, no, that ain't working. And we'll together and roll them at once. Regardless of the outcome, all adrenaline will be used. All adrenaline will be used. Actually, I should say passive defense. Passive defense does nothing. Passive defense does nothing here. More success than whatever scores higher. I would dictate what occurred. Passive defense does not factor into the results of this maneuver. But here's the issue. This is the fundamental issue of grappling. You gotta get close, and it's one of those things, like if you're dealing with like larger duels, it's like taking that initial step close means that you're expending your own adrenaline to try to get close, and they might just fucking stab you. You're like, haha, I'm going in to grapple you, being like, yeah, and they fucking stabbed you. Now you're bleeding. Sometimes words are more powerful than swords, voicing frustrating them to do nothing. The more impactful these appeals are, conversational moves aren't considered aggressive or defensive either, meaning that any stance can use them in the heat of combat. So, Doki, then we kind of clarified some points there. So, strikes. So, I want to downward strike. Striking from the head to chest. Striking for the head and chest, left slash, left laming left chest, successful stuns for the next clash. Do I even have stun as a... No. If successful, halves, reduces AD for, actually reduces AD by half for the next clash. You have a shit ton of dice dedicated to the next one. Someone rushing into you and just bopping you over the head with their pummel will probably do a good way. Let's see, right slash, stab, sweep slash. Let's see, is there any other... Let's see, is there any other necessary strike? So, down, left, right, pummel, stab, sweep, upwards. No, not really. I could just say throw some fucking hands. That could also be an option. Let's see, Kobiet. Into the chest of their opponent. Actually, into the gut. Of their opponent. Deals no damage, but if successful. No. This is always a problem where Actually, what I could do, left swing, pommel strike, right swing, stab, sweep swing, upward swing. I might change this depending on the nature, because I do plan on adding in things like, hey, I want to add in I want to add in blunt weapons. So it's kind of like apply slashing is a little bit weird. But let's see. Oh god. The Kobiet makes a strike. The Kobiet. The Kobiet. The Kobiet. The Kobiet. The Kobiet makes an upward slash, striking for either legs or chest. Beat attack. The Kobiet, instead of aiming for the opponent, aims for their weapon instead. The Kobiet cannot do any damage to the opponent directly, but the attack is considered to have +2 successes. So it's pretty much the idea behind a trick is saying that you are expending your trick is you changing the nature of a blow of some kind. So let's say, for example, that my 3 dice here, I'm going to roll their successes, and they're like, oh, wow, look, everyone, they scored 3 successes. I'm going to say, like, yeah, this is a beat attack. Like, ha ha ha, I'm saying this is going to be a beat attack, and I've rolled 2 successes +2. I strike your sword away, effectively. You know, it's kind of like this is a full parry. The problem being that I don't have any actual dice for it. That I don't have any. I'm not going to do any damage to you. However, so feint fakes a strike to enhance another. Distribute half of their current clash's adrenaline to the next clash, removing the other half from the bout. Flail strikes. Make a random strike out of body part rather than focusing on reducing the strike's adrenaline by 1. Step strike. Moves an extra step with the attack, reducing strike's adrenaline by 1. So let's say I have 3. I could say I want to feint. I would take half of it rounding down, so I would take 1 dice and put it to the next strike. Pretty much saying, like, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of my dice in this current one to make my next attack better. And you can do this for things like, hey, you have a lot of passive defense and you've dedicated a lot of dice because you don't want to get hit, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to just fucking feint. And you feint. Step strikes. So defense, counter strikes. Use a dedicated number of adrenaline into preparing a counterattack against an opponent. If the opponent scores 0 or less successes, attack at the dedicated with the dedicated adrenaline. If they are hit, the effect does not take place. Dodge, parry. Let's see. Attempts to attack the blade of their foe to deflect it away. If the Kobiet is successful in beating number of successes of the opponent, they end beating the number of successes of their opponent's weapon. Actually, is successful in beating the number of successes of an opponent's strike. The clash ends. So you pretty much, that's the beat away. Now you may be wondering, well, why are there tricks here? If you're in defensive style, you can't actually do things like beat attack. You have to use these defense, but the thing is, you can allowed to use a little bit more. So grappling, disarm. So you grappled somebody. Gut takes a definitive stance and stabs their grappled opponent straight in the gut. Requires size 1 or 2 weapon. Requires 3 or more successes in the grapple check. This delivers a tier 4 wound. Pretty much means you fucked. This is a actually, what's today? This would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This delivers a mortal. Let's see. This delivers a mortal wound. Let's see. Tackles a target and attempt to force them to submit. The bout immediately ends at the standoff phase. Only the grappled challenger shoves the backside, forcing 2 steps back throw, and knocks the opponent in front of them. Okay, antagonize and frustrates their opponent, rolling their dedicated adrenaline plus bravado to opponent's versus their opponent's composure. Each success over has the opponent lose 1 adrenaline to any clash in the bout. Appeal. Let's see. Dedicates a number of adrenaline and appeals to opponent's emotions and humanity. Rolling adrenaline plus a relationship. Each success forces to sacrifice 1 of their dedicated adrenaline. Yeah, actually. Okay, we're gonna call this the order of resolution. The order of resolution. When determining the Kobiet's actions, the women's actions during the duel. During the duel, use the order of resolution. To determine what is actually occurring at what time. So it's, let's see. So 1 is conversational checks. It's conversational. 2 is any defensive maneuvers. 3 is any tricks. 4 is any strikes. And 5 is any grapples. What this means is that with the dedicated adrenaline. Dedicated adrenaline to the clash. If the Kobiet is choosing to perform a conversational action, they must choose at the start. Then a defense, trick, strike, or grapple. These dedicated adrenaline, the Kobiet must choose performing a conversation. They must choose at the start. Then a defense, a trick, a strike, or grapple. Now that's Kobiet is choosing to perform an action. Choosing to perform an action, comma, they must declare it at that time. They must declare it at that time and resolve it as well. Passive defense is applied during the defensive maneuvers resolution. So how I picture this playing out, and what I'm trying to get across here more than anything is, we got the duel set up. GM's got his kind of assigned his dice. They've assigned their dice, and first action. And I would be like, all right, any conversational actions? Everyone looks at each other and says no. Okay, any defensive maneuvers? Everyone looks at each other and says no. And then everyone saying, I want to perform a trick. Everyone would say, anyone performing this would say, I want to perform a trick. And then it would be like, all right, please, what trick are you trying to perform? Actually, what I should say is doing defensive maneuvers and resolution. Or resolve it as well. Past defense is applied during defensive resolution. Adrenaline dice. Let's see. Adrenaline dice can be distributed to any of the actions in a separate category. However, they may not actually. Adrenaline dice can be distributed to any of. They may not use an action category twice. So it's kind of like saying I want to dedicate one of my dice to being a let's say beat attack. Actually, the Kobiet cannot do any damage to the opponent, but the clash once aims their weapon instead the Kobiet cannot do any damage to the opponent directly. That's like effectively you saying, hey, I want to do this. Or you say, hey, I want to perform a feint. That's saying, alright, you're going to take your remaining clash dice and you're going to put it somewhere else. Now, I want to do a flail strike. You reduce the strike's adrenaline by 1. Or it's like, I want to do that. You reduce it by 1, and then you have your strike's adrenaline, and then in the next round you can determine what you want to do. Which is, you're going to want to use it. You're going to want to pummel strike. You're going to want to left slash. But the idea being that it's like, I want to do a conversational action. I kind of want to do a defense. Like, oh, I want to try to dodge the next attack. You know, like, that's pretty much saying, like, I want to roll for defenses. Or, hey, I'm effectively saying, I'm dedicating all my dice to a counterattack. If they try to do anything, I'm going to fucking stab them. Let's see. Antagonize, blabber. Who's pinging me? Man, your diction isn't very good on your next video, being like I recorded it at 2 in the morning. Like, I don't think people quite realize that sometimes, that I will record things at like random hours, and there's no good way. It's like, yeah, it's like 2 in the morning. It's time to record now, kings. Let's see. This should. We do that. We do this. We're heading 3. Two, because fuck you. 3. Gamer hours. Actually, I want to check something. See, this is the beautiful thing about Redux projects, where I can just stare at it being like, I don't know what's going on, just do something else in the background real fast. Let's see. This is when you dedicate adrenaline to the clash. Kobiet is performing an action. Okay. May spend 1 adrenaline, 180 to move a step during any clash forward or backwards. All weapons have a dedicated range. If a woman comes in a distance of an enemy with a longer reaching weapon, they have an option to expend defensive adrenaline into a single strike. That's kind of a weird way of wording that. Notepad. That's not how English. If an opponent comes within distance of the Kobiet, while they wield a longer reaching weapon, they have the option to expend defensive adrenaline into a single strike against them, equal to their art. This does not apply to challengers. Of equal length. However, entering a long distance weapons range with a long style weapons range. Entering a long style's weapon range with a short style weapon will while in short style will invite the attack. With the idea being that you're entering in, and as long style, you want to keep them at a distance. That's your defense. If you're both long distance, it's kind of like you can't really close the distance very well. So you're both kind of like poking at each other. But neither of you are really able to defend yourself fully, nor are either of you really able to not defend yourself, if that makes sense. But if you can kind of make the call on them a little bit better, yeah, make the call. Switch your stance up to like short style and make it a little bit more defensive. Switch it up to long style if you want to be a little bit more aggressive. It's kind of that back and forth. Both things have their own advantage and disadvantage. Which is one of the big things I want to get across here. Importantly, time step, broken foot, or other disaster. If a woman ends up on the ground, they spend the recovery and standoff phase, attempting to stand back up, not receiving the additional adrenaline from the standoff. If a woman is attacked while on the ground, they have all of their passive defense dedicated to the clash. If no passive defense is available, they may expend any remaining adrenaline from their clashes to defend themselves. It's kind of that idea being like, if you can't perform your clash simply because they're out of fucking range or you can't do it, it's like, yeah, it's wasted. If they spend all of their entire turn, if they spend clash 2 walking away, then yeah. Actually, where do you put steps in this then? You're speaking, it's kind of like you make an appeal, then you take a step forward, step back, you do your defense, you start a trick, you do a strike. But then you can punish them a little bit more before they can really use passive defense. That's kind of the idea there. War isn't fair. Should a player perform such a feat? Labor, surrender. Surrender, surrender. Surrender, taunt. Most auditors like to avoid death, remain wound tied without proper medical care. It means infection and death. Often serious wounds are deep enough to call a duel effectively fatal without immediate medical care. If Kobiet has a mortal wound, they automatically lose the duel. After the duel, there is a fourth wound type called overkill. Strike were to deal wounds over the mortal wound limit, they go into overkill wounds. The wounds are immediately fatal. Let's come to them during the next recovery phase. If a woman continues fighting at serious wounds or worse, then the limb is considered crippled, with each crippled limb having different effects at the Kobiet's fighting ability. Okay. We do the Kobiet. And actually, we'll have -1 adrenaline. Actually, -1 total adrenaline, max adrenaline. Actually, the Kobiet will have -1 max adrenaline. For every wound they take. Actually, we'll have -2. Actually, the Kobiet will have -2 max adrenaline for every serious wound they take, and a -4 max adrenaline for every mortal wound. Kind of the idea, like, yeah, you're on your last fucking legs, pretty much. Like, if you take a mortal wound, like, yeah, you're not doing too hot. You can take one of those. Now, it's very easy to technically die in this game. And that's the point. And that's what I wanted to do. I need to say hello to Rensler after this as well. 2 max adrenaline. So exterior conditions, wound conditions, and adrenaline. Adrenaline. So, okay, considering the circumstances, a Kobiet may be in Kobieta may be in unique situations leading up to the duel. While rare, if they do occur, consult some of the following. And then we do poison. If ingestion of poison slows movement and causes fits of illness. While poisoned, half the starting adrenaline. And then we do injured. If the Kobiet is already injured, and begins a duel, they will begin at -3. They'll begin at -4 max adrenaline. -4 max adrenaline. They do not gain additional did not gain additional adrenaline at the standoff phase. Or weather. Are dueling in less than favorable conditions. Both have a ticking penalty. Actually, both reduce the adrenaline they gain. Actually, both reduce the max adrenaline. Actually, how do I want to do this? Actually, roll a 1d6. Less than favorable, roll a 1d6. On evens, the Kobiet gains +1 adrenaline. Actually gains the adrenaline during the standoff phase. On odds, the Kobiet loses the adrenaline during the standoff phase. Kind of the idea being like, well, shit, we're fighting in the rain. I've lost some adrenaline because I'm literally cold and freezing and not doing too well. However, you've gained adrenaline. It's kind of that going back and forth constantly as we both kind of trying to deal with the issue. Okay, my inspiration juice is running out. How do I want to word this? Is there anything else I can really add here to the top of my head? Not right now. But I will do this real fast just to make sure. Just kind of one of those things like, yeah, feel free to kind of change the nature of the fight if you want to. Okay. I think this will work pretty well. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it'll work. So let's see. Disabling their phone, keeping them at distance, risking exposing their signs to wayward attack. Long style allows the user to spend much adrenaline as they like per strike, increasing their weapon range. Actually, we can do per clash. Increasing their weapon range by 1, but they cannot use passive block. First style allows passive block, but only 5 adrenaline can be spent per clash. There we go. We tied the styles to the clashes, so it's more along the lines like short style, you're more being maneuverable, you're more kind of bap bap bap. While, let's see, so actually what's when will gradually control the these are actually around distribute their to about a combat team. How this is referred to as dedicating dedicating AD to a clash. Okay. Yeah, it's like a nasty hit can and will kill you. That's kind of like one of the big things I want to get across. Is that like a bad hit is still very bad. Which shouldn't be that complicated to understand. However, it's like... It is like, yeah, here's... You have to remember that, you know, getting stabbed hurts. If I do this, actually, she gets reduced in size a little bit. Can I do that? No, you didn't make sure that too big. Right there. Can I give one more? There we go. So I think she should do fine. There we go. There we go. Defense, grappling, conversational, other. I should actually switch those around to the order of combat, but I don't feel like it right this moment. So, okay, so the head, 2 light wounds, 1 mortal wound. You effectively can take 3 damage to your head. You take damage, you deal... That's like a single stab that does 4 damage is going to kill you if you get hit in the head. With the idea being that you are being stabbed in the fucking head. Yeah, no shit, you're going to get killed. 4 light wounds, 3 serious, so that's 4, 7, 10. It's 2, 4, 5. Actually, they reduce the total adrenaline by the amount during. Actually, the Kobiet will distribute. Will distribute the wounds should she take one. Placing the wound in a location. In the location specified by the placing the wound in a location specified by the strike. If you're doing a downward strike, it's kind of one of those things like you can select to the head or you can select to the torso, which is kind of like usually like most things can strike the torso except things like a sweep attack, where it's like I'm going to try to cripple your legs or I'm trying to do this. Yeah, it's like head, half all clash pool. The Kobiet is bleeding profusely, isn't going to last much longer. Half all clash pools. Max adrenaline. 2 clashes committed per bout. The wind is knocked out of them. The Kobiet, she struggles to breathe through the pain. Not use weapons with the arm, and potentially forcing them to switch hands rely on... Ow, 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 something's in my eye. Oh, relying on flailing with a two-handed weapon. The Kobiet requires half of her adrenaline to move a step. It requires 3 adrenaline to move a step. So it's kind of like you've increased the value of moving by a factor of 3. So it's like, well, I'm dedicating 3 dice to this move, this clash, where it's like I have to spend 3 to like move backwards. Like you're just that fucking injured. Okay. I think we did quite a good amount of stuff today. What I should do is... Combat's been fixed up relatively well. And because combat's now been fixed up, we can now do things like weapons. We can now add in this a little bit more reliably, as well as arts and ethnicities. We can tie everything together a little bit more. Experience, yeah. But okay, I think I'm feeling good. Feeling good, alright. I'm gonna call it here for today. And I'm gonna call it here for today, because I'm very tired. And I'm gonna lay down, most likely. For... probably, let's see, tomorrow, I don't know what we're going to be doing, but that's when the polls are going to come out. Probably that's when I'm going to announce which of the victors of the voting. And then probably we're going to move on to, yeah, I don't know. I still don't quite know what we want to do, but we're making good progress on this. I think we just got a little bit delayed, and I think it's just a lot of little stuff that need to be worked on. I literally might spend an entire day just going over shit. There's also a very non-zero chance where I just start going over. I just start another PDF project and you get to see Artist's Notepad again. I don't know yet. So, yeah, thank you all for watching. My name is Notepad Anon. Like what I do here, do the usuals. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully. And there might be a Sunday stream, there might not be. I don't really know. It's kind of how things go. You don't know. So, thank you. Good luck. Goodbye. And I will see you all later.